For those who have just joined us, we have 1 minute left to admit those who are still in the lobby so that we can begin. Thank you once again for your patience. My name is Elizabeth Wanja. I'm the Brand and Communications Officer at Octagon Africa. So before I invite Dr. Njeri, I'll just like to give you a brief introduction as to who Octagon Africa is for those who are not members or who don't know what we do. So we are a financial services company with significant industry consolidation within the nonprofit, public, and private sector. And we deal in 4 strategic divisions, which are pensions management, insurance brokerage, training, and actuarial services. So if you're ever in need of any of these services, be sure to contact us. Our vision is to enrich lives through innovative financial services and solutions, and our mission is to safeguard the financial future of our customers through lifelong learning, risk management, and retirement solutions. So a brief description of our history. We founded Octagon Pension Services Company in 2007. In 2013, we had our Uganda regional office opened. In 2017, we had our Zambia regional service office opened, and we had a partnership with Alexander Forbes of South Africa in 2020. So in this meeting, I know we have members from Uganda and Zambia. Feel welcome. We did this for all our clients because we understand the importance of mental health. And I don't want to take much of the doctor's time. So today we're going to have a clinical psychologist, Dr. Irene Njeri Njogu, who's going to take us through this presentation. So if you have any question as the presentation is ongoing, feel free to type it down on the chat section and we'll be able to address it once she finishes the presentation. And also once the presentation is done, feel free to raise your hand up. We'll be able to unmute you and we can hear out any questions or concerns that you may have. Just note that we will be recording this meeting. The reason as to why we record our meetings is so that we can upload them on our YouTube channel so that if you ever want to reference again on what was talked about today, you may have a point of reference. So also follow our YouTube page at Octagon Africa. So without further ado, Dr. Njeri, I want to give you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Good morning. From the brief introduction, I'm Dr. Irene Njeri Njogu. I'm a medical doctor as well as a clinical psychologist, just about to finish my training. So today we'll be talking about mental health and mental well-being and how it relates to us in the work setting and even at home and generally in life. Next slide, please. So what do we know? What is mental health when we think about it? And if I may ask a similar question, is it the same thing as mental wellness? Do we understand what it is? Or is it a continuum? Is it a state? Is it a process? And in the next slide, we basically define mental health, which is a state of wellness, which enables one to be able to cope with the stresses of life, be able to realize their abilities, be able to learn and work well with others and even alone, and at the same time be able to contribute back to the community. So something I would want us to note, there are four aspects. One, it starts with an individual who's able to cope with the daily stresses of life. This means the positive stress, the negative stress, be able to realize their abilities, whatever goals we set, are we able to achieve that? Then are we able to learn and work well? And are we able to contribute to the community? So these four aspects are what we look at when we're defining mental health. So just to pose a question, if I'm able to cope with the stresses of life, I'm able to realize abilities, I'm not able to work well with others and also to learn, and I'm able to contribute to the community, would I say I'm in a state of wellness? Would I say I have good mental health? Just something to think about. Then in the next one, we talk about what mental well-being is. And now mental wellness basically now looks at the entire process. It's something that goes on. This is basically ensuring that this healthy mental state we talked about, the one that covers the coping with stresses of life, realizing abilities, learning and working well with others, and contributing to the community. We are able to do this on a day-to-day basis, despite the environments. That's basically the internal environment and the external environment. Internal basically now looks at who you are as an individual, as a person, your emotions, your thoughts, your behavior. And then the external environment is the people you live with, the place you work, where you live, the environment, basically. So that is what now mental wellness looks at. It's not just the individual, but also the surrounding, the external environment. Now that we've talked about mental health and mental wellness, so what do we understand as mental ill health? Commonly, this is known as mental health disorders. And if you ask people, if you tell someone, a common phrase I tell people, I am into clinical psychology. This is my field. Mental health is my department. And the first comment that always comes up is, you're the one who deals with people who are not okay. So trying to clarify that mental health is not the same as mental ill health. So mental health, ill health, or mental health disorders are health conditions which now involve changes in emotion, changes in our thought process, or in behavior, or even a combination of these three. So when we have these challenges in life, we're not able to cope with daily functioning. We're not able to do what we said initially, what mental health is. We're not able to cope with the stresses. We can't meet the goals we set. When we try to work with others, yes, we may be able to, but not to the best of our ability. And even now, giving back to the community becomes a challenge. So in the next slide, usually I like having an interactive session. And in the next slide, my question is, what do we see? What do we see in the image? I don't know if we can have people responding to that or even just raising hands.
Please raise your hand so that I can unmute you, or type in your answers in the comment section.
Whatever it is we see, oh, there's a hand up. Yes. Rat inside a glass. I like that. A mouse with a number of whiskers. That's nice.
Mara, you can unmute yourself and give us your answer.
I see a scared rat. Interesting. Okay, because of time, we'll just continue. So the question is this a common feel in the office or in life generally? So we're all aware of a hamster. So this is just one side. Good. Someone got it. Hamster in a Ferris wheel. Someone says, I see a rat caged and stranded. So if you think of a Ferris wheel, it's a continuous thing. So you can imagine this hamster running and running and running and running and never getting to the end of it. It's a continuous thing. So it becomes a routine. It's like a monotonous thing. If we look at life, is this what it feels like? I wake up in the morning, I have my breakfast with the family, or if I'm alone, then I make my way to the office. Same routine. I have my inbox, work on it, clear, go for lunch if I have the opportunity, end the time, leave, go back home, stay in traffic for a couple of hours, get home tired, shower, and the same thing repeats again the next morning. Is that how it feels? Or do you wake up with that energy, that bounce in the step, as you're walking around, you're thinking new day, new goals, new experiences, time to hang out with people in the office, or even if you're self-employed, time to hang out with what I do, giving back to the community, with joy in everything I do. So uh, something to think about. How do you look at your day-to-day activity? Is it by the time it's Friday, you're like, oh, thank God, man, the weekend is coming. Uh, I get to have a break from all this. I get to sleep. Or is it time to now go do what I enjoy as hobbies because I have a bit of free time? When Monday comes, does it feel like, oh man, I can't wait for this week to be over? How do we look at life? You know, it's all about how you look at a situation. We were all looking at the same picture. Some saw a mouse that with whiskers, someone else saw a scared rat. It's how you look at life that matters. So in the next slide, what we're trying to talk about is in our day-to-day life, we don't live in a bubble. Yeah. There's pressure, there's high demands at work. Uh, Remember, this doesn't mean employment. It could even mean out there, whatever you do, how you engage your time. Mental health challenges do not segregate. They affect each and every person. And how do they present at the workplace or even at home? Commonly, you'll see it presenting as substance use or substance abuse. You know, someone, an individual was okay, and then shortly now they're taking a little bit more of substances, whatever you can think of, be it alcohol, be it uh, drugs, be it drugs, for example, like marijuana. Depression is another common thing. It's become more common now. Anxiety, unexplained fears that we can't seem to put our fingers on. Burnout, very common, especially with someone who's used to a routine. Loss and grief is part of our life. We are all born, and we all know at some point we are going to exit this world. Whatever emotions we go through when we lose a loved one, when we lose a colleague, when we lose a friend, how do we process that? And of course, relationship imbalances. There's no relationship that is all rosy. There are days you'll wake up and things are good. There are days there'll be challenges that will make you question quite a bit of things. But in the midst of all that, does it affect our mental wellness? Or how have we come up with coping mechanisms that help us to be able to at least balance everything and be able to live a happy life? As they say, numbers don't lie. In the next slide, some research shows how this mental health condition affects 67% of workers had at least a symptom, and we'll get to a point where we talk about this, which was an increase in the last year compared to 59% in 2019. This was from CDC across all levels of seniority in terms of management. According to the World Economic Forum, 100 million people in Africa are suffering from clinical depression, 66% of this being women. Yeah, so this is not something we can say, let's just ignore, it's going to take care of itself. We actually have to call ourselves to a meeting and see how can we reduce this? How can we reduce this burden of mental ill health? A study that was done in 2021 by the Kenya Police, in about 3 months, there were 500 cases of suicides. Um, and this is what was reported. So if we count even the ones who are not reported, it shows us the numbers are a lot higher. What does it show? It means there's quite a bit of pressure, there's quite a bit of ill coping mechanisms that's putting down pressure. Our mental health is at stake. We need to find ways of ensuring we safeguard it at all costs. So the next slide, I bring back mathematics, something that I came to love later in life. S is equal to P, which is when it's greater than R. S being stress, P being pressure, and R being resource. So if you think of yourself as the resource, when the pressure is so much that you're not able to give as much as you're supposed to, stress opportunities will come. And this doesn't just mean in the office, this could be at home, this could be with your peers, this could be generally in life. It cuts across all. So the most important thing to make sure is whatever pressures that come, we are able to that come across, we come across rather, we are able to balance them so that there's no point where the pressure is a lot more than what we can handle. Because when that happens, that's what now pushes us over the scale to mental ill health or mental health challenges. So when we think about this, how do all these problems manifest? How do mental health disorders manifest in life? Um, Behavioral symptoms, the most common thing we notice will be the appetite, will be sleep, will be our mood. Yeah. So we tend to either eat a lot. Some people call that stress eating, and for some the appetite goes completely. We even forget we need to eat. We have to be reminded you haven't had a meal today or in 2 days, and you don't feel hungry because you're not present. Uh, this commonly also manifests as eating disorders, anorexia, where you're scared to eat because you believe it's going to um, add weight. You're going to add weight, or so you have what we call um, not a good relationship with food. Bulimia is the other one. You want to binge eat, you eat a lot, but then again after that you feel guilty, and then you end up going to induce vomiting to try and get rid of all this because of the emotions we have. So again, our relationship with food becomes a problem. Increased intake in alcohol and other drugs. This is a common manifestation. And especially people who struggle with this problem, anytime you ask them or you bring up the topic, they say, no, I'm in control of my drinking, or I know what I'm doing. Nothing is a problem. Because even someone who is an alcoholic never admits I'm an alcoholic until they get to the point of realization. So commonly there'll be a lot of denial there. Because of the pressure and the anxiety and all that, smoking becomes increased. You want to find that thing that will give you relief, even if it's for a short duration. Even when you think about alcohol and other drugs, the reason we engage in this is because we're trying to numb the feeling that we have, the pressure that is there. You just want a brief break, a moment of silence, if I may call it that. But then again, when we sober up, what happens? The same impending problem is there, if not worse, because remember, we've allocated finances that are possibly meant to do something else, and now we've used it up to try and do this, and then the problem is still there, if not worse. Being restless, being fidgety, nail biting. Another thing you'll see is someone who initially was very neat may all of a sudden become unkempt. Uh, Initially they'd come with ironed clothes to the office. They'd be meticulous in everything they're doing, but then that has changed. So they tend to become unkempt. Um, on the other hand, it may be the opposite. Someone may be more organized than they used to. They're keeping times. It's what we call overcompensating. Trying to deal with the situation. So they go all out, trying to show everybody that I'm okay, things are doing well. But they never have the chance to now go and unplug and just vent out whatever it is they're going through, whatever difficult situation they're going through. When you look at the mental symptoms, concentration is one of the things that goes down. So, focusing on something, on a task or an activity, they're not able to focus for long. And a common thing that tells you that your concentration span has decreased, you may be sitting with friends, you've gone out with friends, and you're sitting and having a conversation, and you drift completely, and people keep reminding you, hey, where are you? Come back, stop overthinking. Let's be present, be in the moment. So you're with friends, but your mind is elsewhere. Then again, memory lapses, forgetting things, looking for a phone, yet you're still talking on it, looking for khakis and they're in your hands. Uh, and this becomes a more regular thing that never used to happen before. Dancing around making decisions, something that would take you a short duration, to make a decision. You're ruminating on it, doubting, second guessing, all that. Confusion checks in, disorientation. In worst case scenarios, panic attacks come, and this can be very unsettling. It's not normal feeling. The feeling you would get when you're being chased by a dog. Your heart racing, you're sweating, you feel like your heart is going to jump out of your chest. Having this kind of an experience, yet you're sitting in an office. People are wondering, why are you sweating? Why are you jittery? Why are you shaking? And in that situation, you actually feel like if something doesn't change, I actually feel like I'm going to pass out. So those are some of how ways how it manifests. I talked about sleep as well. You can either sleep a lot or sleep less. So you get into bed and you try and close your eyes. You avoid even, sleep, what is called sleep hygiene. Avoid electronics, avoid books or anything, but you're there the whole night. And by the time the alarm is ringing, maybe you got like maybe 30 minutes sleep, and sometimes you don't even get any of that. So those are the common symptoms of how uh, it manifests. Mental health disorders or mental health challenges manifest in our day-to-day life. So in an organization, what are the common effects? One of the common things we'll see is absenteeism, where when you're not able to cope with whatever is happening, work stops becoming a priority, or you keep coming up with reasons of why you're not showing up. Yeah. Even if you're self-employed, normally you would show up in your place of work and do one, two, three. All of a sudden, the urge to wake up and go to work doesn't happen. Presentism. You're at work, everybody can see you've come, but if you look at your output, there's no difference between you being at work and not being at work. You're not able to do the day-to-day tasks. A common thing that most human resource providers will notice is sick offs tend to increase, because remember, when you're not able to cope, it also affects your physical health. So you tend to fall sick a bit more because the pressure has become too much, which in turn affects your immunity. And as a result, you end up picking small conditions and even some impending ones. Migraines start happening, your blood pressure is uncontrollable. If you have diabetes, your sugar becomes deranged despite you being on medication and everything. What does this turn out to? You're not able to show up at work. And when this is repeated over time, organizations are forced to let go of people. That's how now we have increased layoffs. So if we're able to prevent all this from happening, then now that brings us to the next question is, so what do? We know these are the things that are going to happen. Next, do we just accept things as they are? Is there something we can do about it? What do we think? Next. So next is a clip I want us to listen to. Just be a bit observant. I'll ask a few questions after that, and then um, we'll have a discussion. Elizabeth, there's no audio.
Malcolm, unmute your mic. I don't know why we can't hear you.
Okay, I don't know why the audio is not playing. Uh, it's basically just music in the background. I think even as we try and see, let's just be slightly patient and see if we're able to sort this out. Ah, great. Okay, thank you about that. So this is a bit where I have questions. We've seen the gentleman in the small clip we've shared. What have you observed? Before we move to that slide, what have you observed? Either raise your hand or write in the chat section. Health choices. He has a daily routine. Well, the two have. One has an established one. The guy has the same boring routine from time to time, a routine lifestyle, monotonous routine of work. Uh, One of the guys organized with good health habits. I like that. Planning what to do. That's good. I like the bit of planning. Quality of life to the choices we make. Gentleman in a drinking spree. Bad eating habits versus good eating habits. Good. One chooses a healthy lifestyle. Two guys with different routines. One is bad. The other one looks. One is distant as opposed to the social one. Okay. Different patterns of life. Undecided looks confused. I don't know if we paid attention, but when they started, they were looking similar. They were looking the same, if not similar. Uh, they both were lean. They both had good skin. Then one would opt for a healthy meal. The other one, uh, would do a lot of junk on the way to the office. I'm not saying radio is bad, in as much as that's what the clip is showing. What do you choose to listen to? What do you access? Um, is it something that builds you? Is it something that makes you a better person? Um, what When you get to the office, you have your work to do. You have your duties of the day. Are you able to meet them, or do you engage so much on social media that by the time it's time to leave, you still have your inbox is still full, or have you been able to achieve the tasks you've set out to do? When it comes to making a decision about working out, is it a priority to you, or that can be done later? When I have free time, there's never time to do that. Then again, uh, when it comes to friends calling you to go and have a good time, both got the same call. One delayed, finished whatever he had set to do, then later joined. So they both went out. Then at the end of it all, went to bed, slept, woke up in the morning, and the routine repeats itself. Because of the what they do consistently, we can see what happens. The person who goes to the gym becomes more muscular and has a more defined body. He appears happy, he's smiling. Uh, so actions have consequences, good actions, bad actions. We need to be ready to deal with whatever consequences come up in life. The other one, because of the consistent eating of bad food, not exercising, listening to a lot of hard news or negative news, procrastinating as far as work is concerned, you can see the level of dissatisfaction he has. He looks mopey, his skin looks, he's got pimples all over the face, he looks chubby, generally looks unhappy. Yeah. So it all boils down to the same thing. What choices are we making? Are we being intentional with ourselves? There's a hand up.
Yes, Evelyn, you can be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. I wanted to make an observation from what the question that the presenter has had asked. The person, when the alarm goes, he wakes up and he's very jovial, very happy that a new day has begun. And I am observing that he starts at the right note. He's grateful that it's a new day, and therefore the whole day will be good if he does the right thing according to the observations of the rest. So, in my opinion, he gets it right from the moment that he wakes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn, for that. I like the observation. It all starts with how your day starts. Am I the person who, when my alarm goes off, I'll snooze for 10, snooze for another 10, snooze for 20, and before I know it, when I wake up, I'm running because now I'm running behind schedule to try and catch up, you know? Or do I plan my time wisely? I remember listening to a presenter who was saying, if you look around, there's a lot of financial management, how to be successful, how to do that. But hardly do you go to a place and there's a course on time management. This is something that we have to engage in as individuals, to be able to at least now plan. No one can plan your time for you. You're the best person to do it. So if we may continue with the presentation, then we can get to questions after. So we talk about self-care, which is what that video was focusing on. And in this case, we are looking at 4 dimensions: physical aspect, emotional aspect, social aspect, and spiritual. And it's this. What is self-care? Self-care is basically remembering that you are the resource. You are the same person at home, you're the same person in your workplace, you're the same person with your friends. How do you relate in all the situations? Do you remember your worth? Do you know your worth? What are your values? Do you live by them? So, in the physical aspect, Are we sleeping enough? Sleep is one thing that is very important, and I'm sure we can all attest to it. The days you don't sleep very well, the next day is not as smooth sailing as it's supposed to be. At some point, you'll get grumpy. At some point, your mood is affected. Sleepiness during the days, which of course affects our productivity. What level of physical activity are we engaging in? And what I normally say is, I don't tell everybody, please go to the gym and work out. Find that which you like doing. If you prefer swimming to going to the gym, engage in that. It's a physical activity. It's good for your body. It becomes a way, it's a physical release. You're able to let out whatever pressure or whatever stresses are there. It becomes a way of you just venting out in a healthy way and productive way. What we eat. I've had people say we are what we eat. And I think a common language in IT is garbage in, garbage out. So if you're eating a lot of junk food, if you're eating a lot of processed food, this will be evident because you may not be able to use everything that you're using. And there's a physician, Dr. Dindi, who says you cannot outrun a bad fork, no matter how much physical activity you engage in. If you're eating badly, remember 80% of who you are is what you eat. Exercise only caters for 20%. How do you rest? Do you engage in yoga? Do you engage in stretching exercises? Then you look at your emotional well being. Are we emotionally intelligent? Do we have emotional maturity? How is our mood? How do we relate to when anger comes with other people? If someone makes you angry, do you lash out immediately, or how do you deal with that? How do we deal with stress? Are we quick to forgive, or do we hold grudges from here to there? I remember one person saying, when you fail to forgive someone, it's like taking poison and looking at the other person, waiting for them to die. But in the long run, it's actually you who's carrying the weight. The other person may not even know that they wronged you, because if we don't communicate, if we don't forgive, we're the ones who carry the burden. Are we compassionate? Are we kind? Remember, in the definition of mental health, there's the element of giving back to the community, learning and working well with others. For this to be able to happen, then we also have to be emotionally intelligent. We come to our social well being. Do we have support systems? From home, from the family, to friends, to the office. When you're going through a trying time or a difficult time, who is there to help you? Remember, we don't live in a bubble, and human beings are social beings. Who is there for you? It doesn't have to be a parade of friends, it could just be one or two, but they're there for you when things are good and when things are trying. How are we with social media? I remember there's a time when WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram, I think, were down. How did that affect you, if you noticed? And when you get home or when you're in the office, are you able to unplug from this thing and spend time being present with the people you are with? Or is it that when you will meet for coffee, we are all on our phones? And I remember there's a point a friend joked and said, we'd have just done a WhatsApp video call because we don't need to be here in person if we're all on our phones. Do we take time to enjoy the moment? I commonly say, take time and smell the coffee. Enjoy that time with friends. What are the small pockets of joy that see us through the tough times? Um, when we are down, there is no shame in asking for help. There's a lot of help, there's a lot of empathy around us. But if we don't ask for help, it's hard for you to receive help. So please, that's something we all need to engage in. Communication is very important. Are we talking about this? When I come to the office and I upset you, when I'm your friend and I say something that is not doesn't augur well with you, do you call me aside and tell me, I don't think that was the right way to handle things? This is how we should be doing. This is how you would have approached it. Are we quick to listen, slow to speak, or is it the opposite? Boundaries, very, very important. Yes, it's good to be there for people. And at the same time, it's also good to look out for yourself, because if we don't set boundaries, that's how we easily become targets of uh, what do I call it? Maliciousness of other people. Someone may be malicious and they know. If I ask Elizabeth to do one, two, three things for me, not because I'm not able to, but because I know she can't say no. I'll ask her today, I'll ask her tomorrow. And what am I doing? I'm keeping Elizabeth's inbox, but I'm still able to leave early on time. The office, Elizabeth has to stay on maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes to complete her work because she ended up picking for work from everybody else. And there's a slide we'll talk about that a little bit more. So how do we learn to say no? Because we're also looking out for ourselves, and of course in a polite way. Our spirituality is important. For you to be able to engage in all this physical, emotional, social, you need to know who you are. Do you spend time alone? Are you able to do like a review of yourself? What are my values? Have they changed? Are they better? What are my goals? Or do we just wake up every day and, as routine says, let's just do what it is, what it is? That's a common phrase that we all hear. How do we connect with people? Do we have a connection to nature? Do we have a sacred space? Do we pray? Do we meditate? Those who like journaling, are we writing down our thoughts? Are we writing stories? Are we empowering others? So all these things is what involves self-care. And no one can teach you self-care because just from the phrase itself, it starts with self. So this is something you coin yourself. What works best for you? We can give suggestions on what to engage in, but we can't come and tell you, I think you should do one, two, three, because it's you to sit and analyze and see, okay, I enjoy going for hikes, so that's what I'm going to start doing. That's what I'll engage in. I might come and tell someone else hiking is a good way to engage in self care, but you do not like being on heels, you don't like dirty shoes, So, in as much as you're there, you're unhappy. So, it's you to identify what actually brings joy to you. So, in the next slide, as we're talking about boundaries, are you assertive? Do you look out for yourself? Remember, you're your best protector. Do you have a hard time standing up for yourself? Are you what people would commonly end up calling a pushover? You can easily be swayed. And if I just come and tell you a few good words because you don't want to displease me, you'll just say, it's okay, I'll do it. But then what does that do? It leaves you grumpy. So at some point, you have to set boundaries, let people know this is what I can take. Anything beyond that is out of my comfort zone. And please, yeah. At times, it may look like you don't care about them, but then it simply means you have to love yourself. And what I say is, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you don't love yourself, how are you going to love others? If you don't look out for yourself, how will you look out for others? One of the things we were taught early in first aid is even as you go to help, the first thing you look out for is your personal safety. So, do you always check to make sure you're okay before you reach out to do good? Are you in a state of wellness before you reach out? And a common thing that I know most psychologists go through is even as you're engaging in therapy, the first thing you're told is make sure you're okay before you go to offer therapy, to participate in therapy. Because if you're broken, the common phrase that is going around now is hurt people, HURT, hurt people. So if you're broken, it's like a blind person leading another blind person. It doesn't work. You'll both end up in the ditch. So we have to take care of ourselves before we're able to take care of others. And in the next slide, as I summarize, this is what we call a healthy lifestyle wheel. I hope we can be able to see, you can actually zoom in. So where you can look and see there's relationships, there's career, there's spirituality, there's finances where Octagon comes in, there's mindset. There's something Evelyn said, it's how you start your day. If you start this is going to be an amazing day, then that informs every decision you make. So how you look at the glass, is it half empty? Is it half full? Do you look at life in a positive way? Um, if you're always ruminating on negative thoughts, that is what will manifest in life. So learning to be positive in everything we do, it doesn't mean tough times won't come. It simply means we will look at it from a different perspective, and at least we have these small pockets of joy that I was talking about that we can go to. We have this support system that is there to carry us through this time. And remember all these things when you look at how you're eating, how you're taking care of yourself, how you're sleeping. Are you there? Do you enjoy the sunshine? Do you even notice the flowers that grow outside your house or where you walk? When you go to buy coffee, do you just get the coffee and dash because it will wake you up, or do you even smell it? We need to be present because it's the small things in life that make life sensible. And just as a point of humor, as I finish the presentation, there's that I love cartoons a lot, so I shared one of the cartoons I like. Next slide. Next slide. Elizabeth.
Yes, 1 minute. Apologies for that. Allow me to share my screen. I think Malcolm is having technical difficulties.
Yep, no problem. We're almost done anyway. I believe we can be going into questions as you're sharing your screen. And thank you so much for listening and for engaging. That was good. Yes, that's the slide I like looking at. And please take it as a joke. So when someone asks me, am I free tonight? I keep remembering Minions, some of my favorite cartoons. And here they say, no, I'm expensive. I'm not free because I know my worth. I know my value. Thank you so much for listening. And our contacts are at the end of the slide. Um, possibly Elizabeth go into slideshow mode. Yes, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for the responses. I'll remember the comment, a rat with whiskers. That was interesting. Thank you. Back to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Dr. Njeri, for that insightful presentation. For anyone who has a question, feel free to raise your hand. I will be able to unmute you. Type your questions in the chat section. We still have time. Dr. Njeri can be able to address all your concerns right now. Kindly let's engage. Don't be left with questions lingering in your mind. Let us hear from you. Emily says, thank you. You're welcome. Lillian says, we have to be happy in this unhappy world, for sure. Aaron says, greetings from Uganda. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining us. Esther says, this is really helpful, especially to some of us who have gone through depression. Robert says, thank you for the presentation. Penina says, thank you. I'm choosing to stay happy. Moses, you're asking if we'll share the presentations. Yes, we will on your emails, and we'll also upload the recording on our YouTube page at Octagon Africa. Carol, life is short, so we should maximize our time wisely. Annette says, thanks a lot. Thank you, Annette. Farida says, a very interesting and educative topic. Thank you so much. Lydia has a question, Dr. Njeri. She's asking, what is the best way of assisting colleagues presenting mental issues at the workplace?
One, being there. At times we say just being a shoulder is one way of helping, just letting them know that you're there and you care. And at times you may not be asking them, so what is the problem? Because remember, this is one of the challenges we're having is trying to end the stigma in mental health disorders. So they may not be very open about it because even them, the stigma of opening up. Okay, so if I come and say I'm having issues with anxiety, how will people look at me in the office? So one, just being present, even if it means just as you get your cup of tea, just get one for them. When you're going for lunch, invite them, sit with them, and just create that avenue. Let them know there's someone who's out there trying to look out for them. And even as you're doing that, bringing to their awareness that yes, there's help, you can be helped. And usually, most organizations through the human resource network, there's a way that help is availed. In case you need further assistance through that, please feel free to reach me through the email irene.njogu. It's on the last slide, and I'll definitely assist in how we can be able to address such situations. Some organizations are privileged to have therapists within their institutions, so that's an avenue. I keep saying we are underutilizing it. We have become a westernized world, but we are not borrowing everything that the Westerners do. Therapy is a place you just go to get a different perspective of whatever it is you're going through. Bouncing back, get like getting a sounding board. To talk about issues. So if we can engage in therapy with someone who's receptive to that, you can encourage them to also seek help. But most importantly, just one, be present. Let them know you care. That's normally the first way to help. Then the rest now will fall into place. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Gerald is asking, can someone who has OCD transform into something like schizophrenia?
Diagnosis, one, what I've come to learn, especially with mental health challenges, what do we mean by OCD? Is it a diagnosis you were given by a psychiatrist, or is it what people commonly say you have OCD? Because by the time it's a mental health disorder, you're not able to control yourself through the obsessions and the compulsions, where you find yourself, you keep going back, and let's say it's the iron box. You get to the door, you ask yourself, did I switch off the iron box? And you do that like 20, 30 times. In as much as you've just come from checking, you get to the door, you're like, did I check? So it's something you keep doing to the point it's distressing. It's affecting your day-to-day functioning. So one is a diagnosis made by the doctor. Does that lead to schizophrenia? That's again another diagnosis. And for us to be able to see that, we'd have to look out for the symptoms of schizophrenia in this person. So, best advice I would say, get in touch with me or get in touch with a mental health provider, a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and then now you'll be able to be assisted. Before, I don't like using labels, just picking up diagnosis here and there. By the time we get to that, a lot of conversations, a lot of tests need to be done. Test doesn't mean laboratory tests, maybe even just via conversation, some things we fill out and we look at the symptoms that one is experiencing to be able to get to the bottom of it. So best thing is please get in touch with a mental health provider. Then we'll be able to at least address that situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Winfred says, I thought I was being mean by being selfish with my time. Now I have every reason to. Thank you for this. We have Sophie, who's saying, thank you, doctor. How can one support a person that is struggling emotionally but is living in denial?
That is a challenge. And as I always say, the first thing, letting them know you're there. Letting them know you're there is always a first step. And at times, it doesn't mean doing a lot. And like we say, if they know you're willing to help, you cannot force someone to accept your help. That's a fact of life. Um, Whatever it is that they're denying, possibly if you're able to, if you have a common circle of friends or someone you know this individual listens to, it would be good to see if you can, and of course remembering confidentiality, because this is a sensitive situation. If you can get a close friend to try and, you know, have a conversation, and don't make it very official, you know, like telling them, you know, you have this problem, this is what you should do. No, just being present and letting in a clever way, trying to make them realize there could be an issue, not saying there is an issue, making them see that whatever it is they're going through, they can actually get help through it. So remember, the first thing is being present for them.
Sorry, doctor, we're losing you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Sorry,
back.
I'm back. I don't know if you heard the last bit where I said the most important thing is just being present, you know, letting them know that you're there for them, and taking it up from there.
Nancy says, that was insightful. Thank you for the presentation. Waiterero, you're saying if we can do it often, we'll speak to the doctor and create more opportunities like this. Christian says, what is the best method to manage mental health issues like depression? Is it medication or counseling or both?
Thank you for that question. And my advice is both. And depending on the level, actually, the most important thing is depending on the level. Remember, we talk about something like depression or any mental health condition. It all depends on the severity. There's a point where we don't need to be on medication. So if it's something that you can engage in talk therapy, which is uh, basically seeing a therapist, and we're able to resolve whatever challenges we're going through, then we go for talk therapy. In a situation where we feel talk therapy is not working, then that's how a psychiatrist comes in. And when a diagnosis is made, then we give medication. And we still continue with talk therapy, because the most important thing is helping you build coping mechanisms, learning how to live with the situation, and actually get better at it, getting back to your day to day life. So it all starts with what level is it? You know, what level of the mental health disorder? Is it a mild case? Is it a moderate case? Is it a severe case? And all of them have different treatment modalities. Most cases, for the severe ones, will start with medication. Then, when the person has gained insight, we are able to now bring in the talk therapy. If it's a mild case, we start with talk therapy first. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Topacho says mental health is a serious matter, though taken lightly at workplaces. Thank you for the wellness training. Thank you for your feedback. Sarah says, thank you so much. This is very informative. Sarah, you're also asking if you can get the slides. Yes, we will share it to your emails. Again, we will also upload it we'll also upload this presentation to our YouTube channel at Octagon Africa. So Abed is asking, how can you protect yourself from being affected by what is happening around you?
Um, the question is not exactly clear. When you say protect yourself from what is happening around you, a lot could be happening. What exactly are we talking about here? I'd want a bit more clarification on that. The most important thing is identifying your internal environment and your external environment. If something is detrimental to you, then coming up with coping mechanisms or addressing the problem, problem solving, looking out to see what is the issue. Is it something that is within your control to deal with? If it's something that you may need help, asking for help. But the question is not very clear, Elizabeth.
Okay, Abed, you can still type it down on the chat section and we will address it later. Eve says, thank you. Pauline says, life is not a rehearsal, be happy. Halai is asking, how do I tell I need help? Most of the times we suppress our feelings and it's hard to tell whether you need time to seek help for it or not.
How do you tell you need help? One, looking at the things, at how your life is at the moment. Um, are you happy? That's the most common thing. Do you have joy, or is everything just a routine? The things that used to make you happy, if you used to enjoy waking up early, going for a run, are you still able to enjoy that? If you used to sit and enjoy a meal, taste the different ingredients in this plate, are you still able to do that? Or does it just become, okay, I need to eat because I have to eat? It's the small, small things. Remember, we talked about how you cope with the day to day stresses. Are you able to cope with that, or do you feel overwhelmed? Are you able to meet your goals? Are you able to work with people? Are you in a state where you're able to learn? It's the small things you look at. Has anything changed? And if you're not sure, please reach out to a mental health practitioner. Remember, psychologists, we don't go to them because we are unwell. You can just go and have a conversation. This is someone who takes their time to just listen to you, have a conversation. Even you don't have to see a psychologist when you have a problem. At times you could be battling with making a decision and you don't feel confident. You would want to ask someone who is not biased, and basically they'll just walk with you through the journey. So that is one way you can be able to identify if you need help, and then now you take it up from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Maureen says, thank you for the presentation. For a moment, I thought you were talking to me. Wish to join more of the same. We will be sure to arrange more of this session. Valentine says, thank you for today's session. Professor M says, quite an informative and educative presentation. Paul says, takeaway. His takeaway is setting boundaries. Patrick says, nice. Sometimes we forget ourselves and give priority to others. Francisca says, thank you for the useful presentation. I choose to care for myself more. Prosy says, thank you. This was helpful to many of us. Patrick says, thank you, doctor. You said something about pushovers, which may be a result of our personalities. How do I, an introvert, assert myself? How do I make myself be heard without losing myself or my personality?
From the definition of an introvert, thank you for that question. An introvert is someone who enjoys their own company. Um, it doesn't mean you don't have friends, it doesn't mean you don't engage with other people, but you prefer your own company more. You're not very outgoing with people. And if anything, this is a point where you really have to be assertive because people take advantage of such, because they know even if I come and I tell Elizabeth, this is making the assumption Elizabeth is an introvert. If I come and I tell her, yeah, do this for me, and because I know you don't talk much and you don't stand up for yourself, then Elizabeth will just decide, okay, let me just do it to avoid any conflict or everything. But just learning to say no is a very big step. It's not easy when you're learning it, but if it is not in line, if it's not in line with your values, don't change who you are to please someone because you're going to have a lot of infights. I mean, fights with yourself, that is, because you're doing something to please someone else at your own detriment. So learning to say no because you're protecting yourself. Remember, you're the most important resource here, and you're the best person to look out for yourself. How you say no is what matters. Um, you can actually tell the person, I would love to help you with one, two, three, four, but in this situation, I'm not able to because I have things that I had planned to do. You know, you saying that, it communicates that one, you would love to help, but two, you're not able to because of whatever reason. And it doesn't mean you have to explain yourself to everybody. Once you're able to be assertive, people will know. Like if someone comes and tells me, Daktari, I would want you to do for me one, two, three, and if I know I'm supposed to have a health talk, yet someone wants me to go and, for example, see patients at the same time I'm supposed to have the health talk. When I do this, I'll either rush through the patients, which of course is not fair to the patients I'm going to see. And then, two, when I come for the health talk, I won't be in a settled, my mind will not be settled. So I won't be able to give my all. So learning to look out and say, no, I told you from this time, I have this and this engagement. So as much as I would love to help, please find someone else who'll be able to assist you through that. So learn to set the boundaries and let people know. That way you protect yourself and people know if I need one, two, three, I need to tell you in advance. I need to ask if it's okay so that they don't take advantage of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Waiterero says we need more of this. I know Dr. Njeri will not be a stranger to us anymore. Lillian says, usually with mental breakdowns, people are stigmatized as in being labeled. How can we get out of this mentality?
Thank you for that. And what I would say is commonly when you're walking around or with your friends at home or in the office, if you say you have a headache, people don't look at you funny, you know? So this is an illness, yeah, or a symptom rather. Uh, so when I'm having a panic attack, it's still an illness. So why do we treat mental health challenges as something else? Yet it's still the same body that's affected. How do we deal with stigma? We start talking about it. What we are doing, this is one of the ways we raise awareness and making it normal, having these conversations. It's not out there. I always say, it all starts with me. What is my outlook? How do I deal with so and so who has these challenges? How do we deal with people who have mental health challenges? Am I hospitable? Do I avoid them? It's the small things we do that now will be able to affect um, the other people. So the stigma, how we end it is we talk and talk and talk until it becomes common. Remember when we were starting initially, I think this was it in the 80s, when we were talking about HIV? It was such a big scare. But then because of the constant talking about it, raising awareness, letting people know this is a normal thing, it's a normal illness that's affecting people, and this is how we safeguard ourselves. Let's do the same for mental health disorders so that even those who have are able to, because the help is there. We have so many mental health practitioners, but we need to get people who need help to go to them to be able to access this help without being judged. And this we start by how we deal with such individuals ourselves. Thank you. And thank you for bringing up that question. It's a really, really important question.
Thank you. Yvonne says, thanks for this. How can you assist one who feels empty and lonely even though they have people around? What brings about the emptiness?
Empty and lonely. One question I like asking people, um, are you able to be alone but not lonely? Are you able to be on your own and not lonely? Do you enjoy your own company, or do you have to have something happening around you for you to feel okay? So, how do you know that? You have to identify who you are. What are your values? Who are you? How do you define yourself? A common question I always say, if we were to define ourselves, if I was to introduce myself, Um, if the title Daktari is taken away, if my work is taken away, if uh, the name I was given, Njeri, I was named by my parents. I was given, so it's not what I was born with. If that is taken away, what is left? Do I know who I am? Am I that happy person who loves talking to people, meeting new friends? Do I look at a glass half empty, half full? You know, who are you? Are you able to get to the bottom of that? Because once you're able to identify that, when you feel empty, then you're able to walk back and see where would this be coming from. Being empty means, uh, from how I hear it, it's like you're running low on something. And so, how do we replenish? For you to be able to replenish, you need to know what has gone out for you to be able to address that situation. So, talking to a close friend would help, or reaching out to a practitioner would help to try and see, why do you feel empty? How long have you felt empty? It's a conversation I would need to have with you, or I would recommend you to have it with a practitioner to see, how do we remove this feeling of emptiness? How do we bring that feeling of fulfillment again? What is it that's draining you, pushing you to this point where solitude seems to be where you want to be in, and not the solitude where you enjoy your company? Going to a restaurant and sitting and having a meal alone, is it something you would do comfortably, or do you think it's weird? So identifying some of these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Christian is asking, what is the difference between a clinical psychologist and a psychiatrist?
So a psychiatrist is a medical doctor who goes on to do a master's in psychiatry. Basically, they are more, they do like further studies in mental health disorders, and that they're the ones who are able to prescribe medication when you need medication. A clinical psychologist is a psychologist first. Basically, they engage in talk therapy, counseling, in short. Clinical means they understand the mechanisms of the illnesses. So we study more in depth whatever challenges, like if it's depression, what could be the common causes of depression? How does it manifest? What are the symptoms? If you're to give medication, how would the medication work to help in this situation? If the clinical psychologist is not a medical doctor, they are not able to prescribe medication. So, in the event where you need medication, then you would need to still go see a psychiatrist. I hope that clarifies things.
Atungonza says one of the things stress causes commonly is ulcers, and of the reason it's been hard to control. Do you have any advice for him?
Uh, well, I'm not big on advising. Let me start from there. Psychologists, we don't advise. And I'm happy he's able to recognize that stress is a major factor. Now, this is the doctor in me talking. When someone presents with ulcers, there are many things I look at. I look at the eating habits. I look at whatever it is, the content of their eating. I look at how they're dealing with stress or pressures of life. I look at their sleeping pattern. All these things are important, and how do they deal with them? So if stress is a big thing, no matter how much medication I give, if you don't address whatever is causing the stressful situation, you'll keep coming back for medication, which is not a solution. So identifying whatever it is that is causing the pressure, dealing with that. Once that is fixed, then even the stomach will stop giving you problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Gerald is asking, what are the telltale signs of someone who's thinking about suicide or is suicidal?
Wow, that's a broad question. Thank you for that. Uh, some may talk about it. It's different with every individual. The same way we may all have headaches, but one will say, I just have a dull headache, but there's nothing much. Another will be unable to move. They'll say, switch off the lights. I need some quiet time because my head is banging. So we all present with these symptoms differently. So suicide, some will talk about it and they may not say it outright, but they'll just start saying how they have no interest in life. Others will leave notes, others will attempt. So it's different. It depends on who is doing this. And there are some who will just be quiet all through. They will have no telltale signs. You may look at them and you think life is okay, life hasn't changed. They're coming to work okay, they're neat, they're not talking much, which has been their character from the time you met them. So then one time you hear this happened. So for such, it's hard to know. But there's some you'll notice even if they were what we call an extrovert. If someone is a people's person, you may realize they're engaging in that a lot more than usual. There's a small change in their behavior that shows you this is not the usual thing. Someone would come and they'd be super happy, but then today you're seeing this level of excitement is a little bit beyond the usual. So um, one of the things I would say is look at change in behavior. There's always a small thing that you're able to notice, even for the very quiet ones. Their normal routine tends to change a bit because they're trying to compensate, they're trying to deal with whatever it is that's pushing them towards the decision of suicide and getting to the bottom of that. Uh, yes, that's what I would say. It's not obvious, you wouldn't be able to know. And there are some who call it bluff, bluff, bluff. But then I always say any cry for help, take it seriously and address it.
Thank you for that. I see most of you have really asked interesting questions. We may not be able to tackle all of them, but you can always reach out to Dr. Njeri. So I think we'll have like 5 more minutes for addressing some of these questions. And I'll go to Kaltuma's question, and he's asking, how do you deal with a boss who has vowed to frustrate you? No matter your efforts, they don't recognize them, but magnify the slightest negative issue.
Okay, thank you for that question. And that sounds like a toxic work environment. So, how do you deal with that? One, there should be avenues of communication. If it's your immediate boss, um, one, feedback is good, and how you give the feedback is important. Um, One, when you look at whatever it is you're being criticized about, is it something that is true, or are they just being on your case? Two, if it is not true, then communicating back to them and letting them know that 1, 2, 3, you don't believe they're being fair, because if you don't communicate, they may not even realize they're doing it, or if they're doing it to frustrate you, then I'm sure there are avenues in HR or in your organization where you can be able to send back this communication, possibly talk to someone. If you're on the same level, find out if they're experiencing the same challenges you're experiencing. Yeah. Then if you're not able to get help from your immediate colleague or your HR, escalating it maybe to the person who is above you, but that should not be your number one to go to. And then if there's no change, as they say, if you're unhappy in a place, if this environment is toxic, the longer you stay there, the more it is affecting you. There are very many options. Look out and see how best can I be able to deal with this, because it's like you're getting burnt, but you're choosing to stand in the fire. You need to make a decision. How do I get out of this? So the most important thing is communication, communication, communication. Let the person know in an amicable manner, depending on how they respond, and if possible, if you can have it on email, because evidence is good. If you can have it on email, um, documentation helps in many cases. Then possibly by the time you're escalating it, or in case it gets to a point where it's escalated, you have evidence in your email. You're able to use that and say, I addressed this 1, 2, 3, and this is what it has led to. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Boniface is asking, when a chronic sickness strikes, you, what is the best approach? It strains a lot on finances, time, and emotions due to the pains. How can you create happiness?
Chronic illnesses are tough on the person going through the illness, and even the family and the support people around. So one of the things we're advocating for now a lot is therapy, and most of the major hospitals are now engaging in that. If you're newly diagnosed with a chronic illness, there is a support network. There's someone you can talk to so that they're able to make you see, okay, fine, this is the illness, this is not you. Identifying that this is just something that has come by doesn't define who you are. One, maintaining a positive outlook in life is very important, because if you focus too much on the problem, you won't see anything else. Yeah. So having a wider look at life. Yes, just because the illness has come doesn't mean I won't enjoy listening to music, So still tapping into those pockets of joy that I had mentioned earlier in the presentation to keep you going. And again, your support network is very, very important. Reaching out, talking about it. Withdrawing doesn't make it easier. The expensive bits, yes, chronic illnesses are not cheap. So if you have a form of insurance, that would be a plus. You can be able to engage in that, and I'm sure Evelyn and team would be able to guide you through that. But the most important thing is, if it's something new, please get help. Talk to someone about it, and also on your own, do a bit of reading. And then again, even as you go to read, Google can be quite misleading sometimes. So look for proper sites which talk about the condition, and even the doctor who gave you the diagnosis, ask questions. I keep telling people, when you go to hospital and you're going to a doctor's room, it's not a dictation room, it's a consultation room. This is where you should ask as many questions as you can, because you need to understand what exactly you're going through. Then by the time you're leaving there, at least most of your questions should be answered, or possibly the doctor may even give you material on what to read more about, so that you know you're more informed, which of course gives you, it's good to know because it helps you understand what you're going through. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. We have two similar questions from Timothy and Farida. Timothy is asking, are there inborn mental disorders or are they acquired? And Farida is asking, is a child born from a mom suffering from mental health affected too?
I think the last question was from Farida.
Yes.
I'll start with that one. Farida, I don't know if you were there from the beginning of the presentation. Mental health is not a disorder. Mental health is a state of wellness. So just to correct that on a light note. But if a mother has a mental health challenge, do they pass it on to their unborn child or when the baby is born? It depends with what condition it is. Two, it depends on the medication, if the person is on medication. But commonly, if I may give a rough example, if a mother has depression, do they give birth to a depressed child? No, they don't. Are they predisposed to getting depression? Yes, they are, because of the genetics. The same way, if a parent has a condition like, for example, diabetes, the mother has diabetes, the baby may be born without diabetes, but are they predisposed to getting it? Yes, they are. So it's identifying what condition it is. And the question before was, I think, similar. Are there conditions where people are born with it? Yes. Mental health disorders are really, really wide. There are many. And some of them, for example, what do you call this? Autism spectrum disorder. Some of these are disorders that come up. We discover them as the child is growing, but this is a condition someone is born with. Um, there are quite a number. Cerebral palsy, they develop this in the early stages of life, maybe because of birth trauma and all that. So some conditions, yes, you can be born with. What matters is how do your parents, or how do we deal with people who are born with these challenges? How do we support them? How do we get support ourselves, dealing with such situations? And all these services are available. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor, for answering the questions and even taking us through that presentation. I know we've proceeded 30 minutes we've used more 30 minutes than what we had planned for. And I really thank you once again for your time. I see there was someone who was asking for a list of mental health providers that we can reach out to. So I think I'll discuss that with you, and maybe once you share them, I will be able to share to our members on their email. I have also shared Dr. Irene's email address on the chat section for those who are asking about it. Apologies to all the people we haven't been able to address your questions. Feel free to reach out to her. Thank you so much for your time and joining us today. We will plan for more sessions like this. This has been very engaging. This has been very insightful. I have learned so much, Dr. Irene, and I know that I will leave this webinar a different person than the person who joined, and I know many people feel the same. So at this point, allow me to end this webinar. May you have a great rest of the day. Have a lovely weekend. Until next time, we will see you once again on this platform. Don't forget to follow our YouTube page, which is at Octagon Africa. I will be posting this presentation in the next few minutes so you can be able to find it and, revise everything that we have learned today. Thank you so much for being so engaging. Thank you so much for joining. Dr. Irene, any last words?
Um, there's someone who said we have one life to live. So what I would say is yes, this is finals. It's not a try. It's not like in sports. You don't try, then come and leave. This is it. Make the best of it and have a good day.
Have a good day to you, Doctor. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.